Lakshmi, your screen is not shared. Sir, you can speak probably.
Yeah, okay. So my video, I think, okay, I'll just go on now. Thank you very much. Bringle Academy, congratulations for this first talk. My name is Vinod Pandita. I'm basically right now from Gurgaon, talking to all of you out there. This particular talk is all about art of delegation. So I think I'm going to dwell on this management topic, which is the most critical topic in today's world, in the business environment and in the professional world. So I think this topic is very close to my heart. I've been practicing this and I have seen ups and downs in the industry because of this skill not being there with. So I think this topic is something which I would like to share as a management consultant, as strategic leadership coach and a master trainer. I have been into industry for quite some time now. It has been almost 25 years. And this particular topic, which is the most important skill set, every leader, whether the person is in business environment, whether he is leading an organization, a small scale industry, any MSME or a small service industry, any entrepreneur or any professional leader, in corporate sector or in any business environment, this particular one skill is missing at most of the places. And people rather don't understand the essence of art of leadership and the art of delegation, because this particular skill is missing at most of the time. So I will give my thoughts, my experiences, and share a few critical areas of that how this skill can be developed by leaders. So should I go ahead, Lakshmi, over the topic, or you would like to say something in between?
You can please go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I think, you see, I see this as one of the important leadership skills every leader should have, primarily. But because it's not there, so one of the important things is a leader has to really understand this art of delegation, and because he has to get things done from his teams, from his subordinates, so that person has to understand the essence of it. So first of all, I would say that who are those people who have to really develop this skill are basically people who are in the leadership position in the professional world. So one of the greatest mistakes which most of the leaders make is they really don't understand the involvement of people who are reporting to them, and they actually don't share the work profile with the people. So I would say that the first thing which every leader should be doing is to understand whether the people who are reporting to him or her, whether their job description is clearly defined. When I say job description has got four important pillars. I call them as 2 R's and 2 A's. 2 R's are roles, responsibility, authority, and accountability. Now, most of the leaders, they delegate, but they these four pillars, or 4 parameters for their delegation, whatever task they want to delegate. So first of all, we have to define the role of each member of the team. We have to define the responsibilities. We have to define their authorities in the process, and we also have to define their accountabilities. Now, when we talk about key result areas, because see, every team member has to perform, and that is what they are expected to do. And once these 4 things are very well defined, the accountabilities become their key result areas, because ultimately a leader has to look at whatever he has delegated, whether the performance is right or not. So the key result areas have to be defined. Now, how do we define the key result areas is the most important thing, which most of the leaders don't have an understanding, clear strategy behind it, and they don't have a framework to do it, because they might learn from somewhere, but then they have not developed this skill. So this session is all about to tell them, all the leaders, that how to develop this. So first of all, the role has to be defined, the responsibilities have to be given, and all these two A's, like authorities and accountabilities, have to be defined. And then you have to turn this job description into key result areas. Now, each key result area of each member in that team where this delegation has to happen has to be very clearly strategized. I mean to say that, for example, if in a month there are 26 days or working days in any business or professional environment, everyone has a certain role to play. And it has to be, the KRA has to be distributed as per the roles, as per the responsibilities of that person. Once a leader does that on a paper and sits with the team member and makes him understand that what are his areas of work, and then how he is going to be accountable or held accountable for the result, which he is going to achieve at the end of the day, to make his delegation effective, is the crux of the matter. So most of the people who want to perform, who are very productive, I believe that everybody is competent, everyone understands his work, but probably the person is not clearly, told that what exactly is his expectation, the leader's expectation from that person. So what needs to be done is that each KRA has to be weighted, in a very scientific way. So, for example, if there are 5 different tasks which a leader delegates to his subordinate or a team member, so there has to be a weighted average given to each and every key result area, or every work he's expecting him to do for that particular in that particular context. So once that percentage is defined, then a monitoring has to be done on a daily basis. Now, this monitoring is something where a great amount of discipline of a leader as well as the follower or the team member has to come in play. So most of the time what happens is a leader delegates and then he forgets. And then at the end of the day, or probably after a week's time or after mid of the project, he comes back and he says that, what have you done? And the person down in the second line of command, because he is not monitoring his performance, so he will come with a very subjective statements, and finally the time is lost. So again, the deliverables, all those things, become a very big challenge for a leader. So to execute it properly, so first of all, it has to be clearly defined, and then a daily monitoring mechanism has to be developed. And for that, my personal experience as a consultant with most of the companies is that I handhold them to really sit down and really define these KRAs to make this delegation more effective. So how do we do it? It is very important that every KRA is cascaded down into the result area in terms of the target, in terms of the performance, in terms of what is expected from that person. And then it has to be monitored. Now, I have a very simplified way of monitoring it, that you cascade that one KRA further into a checklist of tasks given to that person, and let him create an MIS sheet or a task sheet for him to monitor himself. It's a self-assessment by that person. Once that is done, what he has to do is he has to just put binary number against it every day. Whether the person has completed the work, he will put 1. If he has not completed the work on that particular day, against that checkpoint, he will put 0. So you will see that the leader will have every day a performance monitoring system in place, and he will get a report every day in the evening through email, through some kind of a monitoring mechanism where he knows that, okay, and the person who is supposed to do that work, who has been delegated that work, he will also come to know that, yes, there is something pending which he has to cover tomorrow. So, with this process, because it's a very scientific, though it's an art, but, there's a lot of science behind it. Obviously, art is more of soft skill, which a leader has to really develop and has to have as a leader, because this is the inbuilt thing, which he has to develop. And once you have a very scientific way of monitoring that person or the persons in his team, it will become very difficult, easy for that leader to really evaluate the performance of each and every person. Now, if you pick up any book on art of delegation, if you see videos, if you look at the content available globally, it is more on a management theory. I give a perspective of my practical experience in my life, in my career, while I have been interacting with a lot of clients there, because we engage with the clients, for different projects, and we define the team leaders. And once the team leaders are defined, they have different teams. And we have seen the failures primarily happen because those team leaders, they do not know how to delegate. So the art of delegation is nothing but delegating the right thing with the right person. And most importantly, that choosing the right person for the right job. Now, the skill gap, what we in today's world, we talk about too much of skill gap. The skill gap is deliberately done, because there is no strategy behind HR deployment. So once an organization or a team leader has a clear strategy of defining the HR deployment strategy on the document and defining KRS for every member in the team, I think it's not very difficult to really monitor them. There has to be a great amount of I would say, discipline, which has to get associated with it. And a team leader is supposed to really have a tab on everything. He has to have a tab. So in my experience, recently we are working with a company which has got about 500 people working. It's a manufacturing facility. And this company has transformed in 6 months only because the team leaders, about 12 team leaders, were trained initially that how to delegate. Because at the top, you cannot do everything yourself. So there are 500 people who have been engaged through 3-tier delegation process. So this is my experience that it can be so powerful. If you really do it in a more scientific manner, you can really transform organizations, you can transform projects, you can really achieve what you have desired for that project. So my overall experience talks about and says that, art of delegation is one of the greatest skills. I will be talking about on this platform. I'm really excited to talk about top 10 skills of leaders, who can actually develop those 10 skills, art of delegation being first of them. The greatest skills which any leader can develop is something which I will be sharing more and more on this platform.
Thank you so much, Vinodji, for the information which you have given for the art of delegation leadership. So I have some questions. So I would be, as you have already defined what is art of delegation, I would like to know who should have or learn this art.
You see, as I said in my talk, any leader or any person in the leadership position, for example, any entrepreneur, who runs a small enterprise, or a professional or a manager, or somebody who is in a leadership position for conducting a certain task, or who has been given a certain task, or who has to do a certain activity or a task or a process. I think I call them, all of them, as leaders, because they are leading in that particular moment a certain task which an organization gives them, or an entrepreneur picks up on his own, and he understands that what he has to do. And every leader should develop this art of delegation.
Okay. So how can a leader learn this art of delegation and make best use of this skill set?
You see, as I said earlier, one of the important things a leader should do is he should understand who is in his team. Who are the people, and does he have an authority to choose the team members? Or, for example, in any organizational setup or in any small and medium enterprise where business owner runs an organization, he doesn't have choice. He has 5 people, or he has 2 people under him, or he has got number of people, or maybe 10 people under him, or in any corporate environment, people have different teams under them. Uh, how does he learn this skill is very simple. He has to sit with the team and really define the framework of art of delegation or the delegation. Now, when I say framework of delegation, is basically that the leader has to understand the mind of the team members. He has to sit with them and clearly define the roles and responsibilities and the accountabilities those people have to have with that particular assignment, or with that particular project, or with that particular process, or with that particular function. So that is how he can learn it, and he can actually develop it, and then finally he can actually handhold the team members to really execute it.
Okay. So one more thing I want to ask: why is the art of delegation required at all?
Because just to make delegation effective. Because if you see in the business environment, most of the things don't get done in time. Time is precious. Delivery of a project, delivery of a certain task, is paramount. I would say time is paramount. Time is one of the greatest resource we have today. If we lose time for doing certain things, then we lose everything. We lose resources, we lose money, we lose confidence, we lose everything for that matter. So I think why it is done, I think this is the need of an hour, and everybody should learn this. And every person in personal life and professional life, everywhere, people should learn art of delegation. This is one of the most important things which I have experienced, and I have seen that a lot of gap in the environment around, where people are not able to achieve what they want to achieve because they are lost. They don't know. They are not very objective oriented. So this is my recommendation.
Okay. I would like to ask one more thing. For managing teams, how does art of delegation make an impact in business or work environment?
You see, as I said, for example, let's take an example of a project, or let's take an example of a customer, or that organization's customer asking for a certain delivery, or probably maybe in any sector. You can pick up any sector. It is applicable across the board. It's not only for one segment. You can pick up anything, and I can give you an example. So, for example, let's take an example of an education sector. Now, there are a lot of teachers, a lot of faculty members who teach thousands of students, right? So, but the principal, the dean, for example, at the top of the organization or top of the institution, they have a certain curriculum to follow, as per maybe CBSE, or as per the UGC norms, depending on which it is. So, for example, that person, that dean or that principal or that the CEO of that institution has to really delegate certain things to the teachers or the faculty members, who are basically the knowledge transfers, who have to really interact with the students. For example, if he doesn't give them, a very unique framework to really get certain, pedagogy implemented, and the way, because there has to be a uniqueness of any organization, because every organization is different. Every organization is unique. Every setup is unique. Every project is unique. So, because, you have different sorts of people working on that. So how does he ensure that there is an impact of these faculty members on the education of or the teachings of the curriculum and on the students? So students are the beneficiaries. They are the customers for them. So, for example, if the student is not satisfied, the beneficiary is not satisfied, the stakeholder is not satisfied. So how will you achieve the success of the institution? So I think this is the most important thing, that this has to be there, and I believe that every organization, every institution, small or big or medium, should bring art of delegation, one of the important aspects of training, development for everybody in the organization.
Okay. So how can a leader make his delegation more effective?
You see, I would just say very simply that he has to do only one thing. He has to just sit with the team. He has to sit with the people whom he is going to delegate something and understand their mindset, understand their competencies, understand their skill sets, and accordingly delegate. He cannot delegate because he's boss. He cannot delegate something because he's occupying a certain space. As I always believe, and I always tell this thing, that leadership is not a position, it is a behavior. It is something which you really imbibe as a leader because you have to get things done. Now, if that person doesn't sit with the team which he has to delegate that work and really doesn't take in feedback from them, sit with them and really agree on what is to be delegated. Because, if he is not delegating, then he is instructing. I'm not encouraging a leader to instruct. There's a difference between instructing the subordinates, and there's a difference between instructing and delegating. Now, when we say delegation of power, delegation of work, delegation of job, delegation of authority, it has to be two-way communication. It has to be very, very strongly connected with the people, with great amount of emotional intelligence coming into it. He cannot just throw things and throw instructions at people and expect them to perform. Sorry, it cannot happen. He has to be very professional in doing it, and he has to be very compassionate with people to really see whether they will be able to do it or not. If they are not, if they raise their hands, they say, we cannot do it, then he should not delegate. He should delegate that particular job to somebody else where he gets the result. So this is how I believe that it should be done.
Okay. So what are the myths around this management concept of delegation?
Yeah, this is very interesting. The greatest myth, I would say, one of the greatest myths, there are many myths, but one of the greatest myths which I have experienced is that there are a lot of leaders who say that my team is not competent. The gentleman is not competent. This girl is not competent, and this is the myth. I strongly believe that everybody is competent in this world for a certain faculty. Everybody is intelligent, because if you have a brain and it is working properly, you are an intelligent person. You can actually understand what is. It's only the gap is that you are not told. It's like something like this. There is a person who eats vegetarian and you give him non-vegetarian. It's something like that. He will not be able to eat that because he doesn't eat non-vegetarian. So how will you offer him vegetarian and non-vegetarian and expect him to eat that? It's as simple as that. Because life, as I always say, life is very simple. We complicate it with a lot of theories, lot of thoughts. I think it's very simple. It has to be one-to-one, and it has to be very specific on that particular job which he has to delegate.
Okay. Can you share some example from the industry for our audience to understand its practical implementations?
I have already explained it, that the KRA is the key. Key result area is the key. So I gave you an example that quite recently, there's an organization, for example, it has got about 500-600 people, and there's a project of operations where the team leaders are identified. There's a three-tier delegation process. Delegation does not happen in an organizational environment at one level, and as I said, it is not an instruction. Delegation is a process. It's a scientific process, but it becomes an art when you know what is to be done, and then it is a question of art. So my practical experience and the case study because I have worked with more than 400 companies and cutting across the industry segments, and I have seen this mistake done by most of the leaders, and I always tell them that, if you don't define the KRAs, the job roles of people, and don't assign values to it, you have to assign values to each and every job you are assigning to a person. And that is what we have done recently in an organization. It's a 400 crore company. And in just 5 months of, short span of time, a team of 12 team leaders, who were trained and developed that on art of delegation, how to do it. They chose their people, their teams themselves. We didn't tell them who are going to be your team members. They picked up people from supervisory staff on their own. They chose people and then they created their own teams. And then they sat with them. They went through a certain process. And then finally, everything was done like 18 months project was done in 5 months time. That is the speed, it can work with.
Okay. So I would like to ask, do you think this skill is at all required in today's innovative and technological driven business environment where human intervention is becoming least?
No, but exactly, this is what most of the people ask me in most of the forums, that, management skills are not, when there is a technology, what is management for? But I always tell them that, see, after all, behind every technology, there are humans, Technology didn't come from the sky, We have developed the technologies. We have to get it done through people. Somebody has to sit at the interface. See, Alexa cannot be everywhere. So
Yes.
you have to create, you have to have people around. You cannot get things done on their own, in the air. There are people, there are human interventions in every business environment. I strongly oppose the statement that humans are not required. I'm sorry, where will this 1.25 billion people go, if technology takes over completely? Technology is very important for expediting things. Technology is important to really thrive, in today's environment where you have to reach out to most of the people. But I think it's very important that, human intervention should not be completely ignored.
Okay. So coming on to the today's last question, what are your top 3 recommendations for business owners and professionals, as you said, for effective delegation of work?
See, in large corporates, this particular science is already defined to some extent, where HR plays a major role. But my recommendations, 80% of them, or I would say most of my recommendations, are for small and medium business owners. Definitely, it applies to the top leaders in corporate world also, but and people working in SME sector. But my recommendations are for the business owners who want to do everything themselves. They don't want to delegate anything because they don't trust. It is not a question of trusting and mistrusting people. It's a question of knowing or not knowing. Actually, they don't know how to do it. That's why they fail. So my top 3 recommendations for everyone is, first of all, know your teams well. Choose them very carefully. Okay. And once you choose them, you develop them. And then define job roles, job description, because most of the small, medium enterprises, the startups, for example, who are B2C companies, or maybe B2B companies, or any organization, institutions, they don't have a system, in place. So I would say that the system has to be developed. Job descriptions have to be defined. And under these 4 parameters, which I said in the beginning, role, responsibility, authority, and accountability. Once that is done, then convert all the accountabilities of that person into KRAs. So third recommendation is that define very well measurable KRAs, and then see the magic. It will be very effective. So delegation will be very effective in that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vinod sir, for giving us a good experience of knowing about what is art of delegation. And I would like to say about something about the 100 Mentors Club, which is being done in Bengal. Lakshmi, can you share the screen? Yes. So this is the screen right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That looks very impressive. Very nice.
Yes. So basically, in the screen, as it said, Bringle's mentor listing. And what is Bringle? What is Bringle platform? So Bringle platform is actually a industry-led technology platform striving to develop competency framework with the holistic training and skills development. We are mainly focusing on school children, college students, working professionals, entrepreneurs, persons with disabilities, housewives, and senior citizens.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. And I would like to also say about the Bringle wave. We are hello. Yeah. So there are basically three listing of Bringle's mentor listing packages are there. One is the basic profile listing, in which you can increase your personal brand's visibility by creating a profile on Bringle platform, and from that you can get 30% of royalty for the content and online services you will be getting. And the other is leverage on our social media promotions for improving your online reach. This is the basic profile listing. And the other one is premium profile listing, which comes with packages such as dedicated personal branding and social media promotions on multiple platforms. So we will be doing personal branding as well as social media promotions on the multiple platforms. Complete access to the Bringle's technology platform with live sessions and one-on-one mentoring. And from that you will getting around 70% of royalty for your content and online sessions. And after that there will be a live streaming and dedicated brand promotions on our skills development, and the other package would be a platinum profile listing. So these are the three profile listing which we have for the mentors.
Perfectly fine. I think you have created a wonderful, Anshav has done a great job. I think this is one of the, wonderful platforms I have recently experienced. I think people are going to be greatly benefited out of this. And most importantly, it's an ecosystem for, cross learning across the board. I think skill development is one area which can be taught to millions of people, through e-learning process, which you have already developed. So my support is always there. Thank you very much for having me here. And I look forward for more sessions like this. Thank you very much. Okay.